It's lights out.
Welcome back to another episode of Drive Thru Penalty. I'm here with my father, Craig. We're going to be going over last week's race in Bahrain. We're going to be talking about this week's upcoming race in Saudi Arabia. We're going to talk about F1 history, F1 news, and F1 fantasy strategy. Let's get into it. And that's a wrap for the Bahrain GP. I got to say, that was awesome and so much more entertaining than last week's race in Suzuka. I enjoyed every minute of it. What'd you think of it?
Well, I liked that it was there was passing, and I liked the fact it was a little more competitive.
And at any given point, if you looked up at the screen and you were looking at who was running what tires, you know, there were softs, mediums, hards, all going at the same time, different strategies. And in my opinion, that's what made it extremely exciting. And I'd love to see much more of that in our future races.
Well, there is an advantage for us as viewers if they all have different tires, because it brings them into their boxing, and they're bringing them in at different times to change the tires again. And the part that makes that exciting is that's when you'll see some swapping of positions. And, you know, I don't care how much you watch as a casual fan, you never know exactly why they're doing what they're doing in those pits and changing tires at this time, and so it makes it more exciting.
Half the time you're at the edge of your seat, and as a Ferrari fan, I'm usually yelling at the screen, but as you can see, I got my jacket on today, I got my hat here with me, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic. Much better performance from Ferrari. I think finally we're actually going to see them come into form. And, you know, it's going to be tough fighting George and Kimi Antonelli up at the front, but I think Ferrari's got what it takes. That might be a really good differentiator pick when it comes to F1 fantasy this week. Ferrari might be your team to go with. Anyways, if I could afford it, I'd probably do that, but I'm not quite there yet. I think guys like Craig, who have 106.5 million, are sitting pretty and have a lot more opportunity with stuff like this. I'm at 103.4 right now, which is really good considering I got off to a horrible start. So happy where that's at, but we'll get into the F1 fantasy stuff in a bit. Anything you want to chat about the race?
Well, I'm in disagreement with you on Ferrari. I think Mercedes is still the number two. If you recall, a week ago, I brought up the fact that Lewis Hamilton was very disappointed with his particular car and read the riot act to Ferrari. And this week it's Charles Leclerc, and he's reading the riot act to Ferrari. He does not want to drive the car set up the way that Lewis Hamilton sets it up. And this is bringing a little dissension in the team, because one thing in Ferrari, they don't like having the two guys on different planets. And right now they are on two different planets. And I don't know what kind of turmoil that will bring down the road.
Sure, and you know what? One thing that I've learned from sim racing is, sure, you might be in the same car as your teammate, but all the fine tuning and the way that you can make all these adjustments, it really makes for a different car and a different ride.
Well, they also got the upgrade package coming soon, and Leclerc's going, I don't want the same upgrade package that Lewis is getting. I think he might be a little miffed that they're not doing well, because when Lewis Hamilton was brought in there with that big payroll, he was also expected to tone the cars to a certain way that's a measured success. And I guess because they're not off to a flying start, there's a little rift going on there.
And you probably have high expectations out of a 7-time world champion like Lewis, so that puts pressure on him. But you know, as Charles, as his teammate, like you really want to prove that you're worth just as much money as this guy, right?
So one last bit about Ferrari: if you're in the pool, why was Lewis Hamilton the driver of the day? I think he came 8th or something. His own teammate beat him. I mean, it's just, what's going on with these things?
It doesn't make any sense. I think this is the 3rd week that we've talked about this in a row.
No,
Something's
I think
not
it's
right.
the 4th week.
This might be the 4th week that we've talked about this in a row, and you know what? That's fine. But if you're in F1, if you're playing F1 fantasy, and you know you're in a competitive league and you're fighting for top points, and you know you're losing out to something like that, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'd like to see a change. I'd actually like them to remove that point scoring system all out of the game together.
Well, Sean, what do you think's going to happen this weekend?
Well, I think we're in for another exciting week. I think look out for the usual suspects, Oscar and Lando. Lando can't be happy with last week's performance. I mean, he definitely doesn't want to be losing to Oscar. He's still number one in the Drivers' Championship. So he's going to be fighting hard this week. I expect to see probably both of them on podium. As for that other spot, very well could be George Russell. He looks great this year. It very well could be Charles. It very well could be Lewis. Could be Kimi. And definitely don't count Max out. So, I mean, it could be any of those guys, I think.
You're right. It could. And that's why they race.
And that's why this year is, in my opinion, so much more exciting than the last couple of years has been. I love that every weekend you don't know what to expect. You have different drivers on the podium. For me, this is the best Formula One.
And the teams are constantly resetting, right up until midnight before a race. They get so much information when they do those practice laps and stuff that they know when they need that extra bit of downforce. And some guys get it right and some guys don't. And each car needs this as opposed to the other car needing that. And that, again, is also why the same guys don't win every week. So I think we should wrap up that. And the only thing I can give any more advice on going forward is cross your fingers.
Cross your fingers is right. Let's jump into my favorite segment of the video. Craig's going to dive deep again into some F1 history. Take it away.
Something really neat happened on the weekend in Bahrain. And I want to speak about one of everybody's favorite personalities and racing drivers, Jackie Stewart. In 1939, he was born in Scotland, and his name was John Young Stewart. Coming from Scottish descent, I can say Jackie, John, as long as they're close, it's okay. It works in Scotland. So Jackie Stewart, known as the Flying Scot, he was the world champion in 1969, 1971, and 1973. In those days, the Formula One drivers didn't really make a ton of money. They were usually forced to travel a lot throughout the world, and Jackie took on everything. Jackie raced Can-Am, he raced Le Mans, he raced Indy. In 1965, Jackie Stewart moved up to Formula One seat, and he was racing with BRM, and his teammate was Graham Hill. In 1969, he really came into form, and he was the world champion, and he was known actually for winning races by laps. Again, he was a very busy driver in 1971. He actually crossed the Atlantic 186 times because he had various commitments. He had a big deal going on with Ford, he had a big deal going on with Heineken. He was, as I said earlier, he was in all these different classes of races. He did manage to accumulate some pretty good money. In 1973, his wife was counting the number of people that were his friends and her friends that had died in motor car racing. There was 57 of his friends. It really made him look back on his life and everything. 1973, he didn't enter the last race. His final race was in Canada. And he didn't go in the last race because he'd already won the world champion. But he basically retired at that point from Formula One. And even when he was driving, he spent a lot of effort and time was put into making the track safer. I mean, you'll find this hard to believe, especially the younger generation. He made sure everybody wore seatbelts and had helmets, full coverage. If you go back in the old days, you'll see them wearing goggles and they're just sitting, pumping around like this. But no, this is, he did a lot of things. There was tracks that certainly didn't have, he almost died in a crash. They didn't have an ambulance. They put him into the room where all the guys are in prep and stuff like that. He was laying on cigarette butts. And finally, I think Graham Hill got him on a jet or something and got him to a hospital. He has made monumental changes in the safety of Formula One. A lot of you people will never have seen a Formula One driver die. In 2001, because of all his contributions to motorsport, Jackie Stewart was knighted and is Sir Jackie Stewart today. So an interesting thing, and the reason we're doing Jackie Stewart this weekend is because if you watched Bahrain, if you watched before the show, you would have seen the fact that he was in the Tyrrell that he won the World Championship in 1973. They had the car in Bahrain, and he's 85 years old now, and he got in there and he did a lap. He swore he would never do that again, but it was a real thrill for him. But the interesting thing here is that the helmet he wore, he had signed. It traveled around the world. He had it signed by 20 living world champions. Everyone that's alive signed it, including Michael Schumacher, who was assisted by his wife. A little shout out to my friend in Las Vegas, Stevie I, the skateboard guy, who's going to cringe when he hears me do this because he can do it much better. What a great day for a motor car race.
That was still pretty good. And you know what? I got to say, it was pretty cool seeing him there last weekend. I like that he took the time and went to go meet all the drivers after his lap. And if he caught it, Lando went over to him and shook his hand and said, "Hey, what was your lap time there?" All right, welcome back to the F1 Fantasy Strategy segment of this video. We're going to keep today's episode short and sweet. We are going to quickly go over good team options this week and whether or not chips are in play. So this is my team currently. If you tuned in last week, you know that our main focus was primarily building budget. We weren't necessarily focused on points, but we need money so we can build a better team down the road and be competitive and climb the rankings. So here we are. All of our drivers did exactly what was expected last week. They made us money, which is fantastic. So we are currently sitting at 103.4 million, which is not bad. It's probably pretty similar to some of the budgets that you guys have out there, which gives us enough leeway to finally build that team we were talking about last week. So jumping back to our team here real quick, we have 2 free transfers to work with this week, and I'm going to show you guys what I plan on doing. It's a little bit of a different situation. Not all drivers are expected to make money in the B tier as they did last week. We are expected for some price decreases. However, we're going to put in a couple assets here that hopefully don't lose us any money, and I'll show you exactly why in just a sec. So we're going to finally get rid of the Racing Bulls, although still a good budget building option. And ultimately, we want to fill this instructor seat with Mercedes. We're not going to be able to do that, as you can see, because we have 20.9 million keeping in one of these higher priced drivers. So we're most likely going to have to drop Ocon this week. So we're going to put Mercedes in here, and we're going to see what remaining cost cap we have left, which is 6.3 million. We don't have too many options. If we switch back over to the drivers here, we are pretty much left with Gabriel Bortoleto. Now, he's not a bad choice because he is currently at the floor price of $4.5 million and cannot get any cheaper. So if anything, he's going to stay the same. Hopefully, he's going to make us a little bit of money. The only driver I'm not too excited to have on my squad at the moment is Jack Stewart. We've talked about it before. He's probably going to get dropped in the next couple of weeks if he has some unfortunate race weekends. And as we know, Saudi Arabia is a tough one, and it's going to be ruthless on these rookies. So only time will tell. We're going to run this squad this week, feeling pretty confident, hoping it's going to score us some points. I know some of you guys are looking at potentially using some chips. I don't typically advise using chips unless it's a sprint race weekend because you are able to capture maximum points. There's a sprint race, there's an extra race, more points to be scored, more points to be made. So looking quickly at the Limitless chip, it could be an option. So keep in mind when you activate the Limitless chip, your team still remains the same in the background, whether they're going to gain or lose your money. It's going to revert back to it next week. So if you're happy with Haas in there and you think they're going to make you money again this week, fine. But I still think it's worth waiting for a sprint race weekend to activate our Limitless chip. And as for the other ones, I don't see them coming into play this week. I think we're just going to kind of wait it out. Also, when using the Limitless chip, you want to be completely confident that the 5 drivers you choose and the 2 constructors are actually your top picks. And I don't know who those top 5 drivers are. We know Piastri, Norris, but is it Charles? Is it, it's probably George Russell. Is it Max Verstappen? Is it Lewis Hamilton? Is Ferrari in there? Is Mercedes in there? Too many unknowns, which is why we're going to save it for a later week. But I'd love to see what kind of builds you guys have out there. Good luck to you all. If you have any questions, drop them down below, and let's get back to the video. Thank you for joining us again this week. We love having you. If you like the video, please hit the like and subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. And stay tuned for the next one.
Hey, Sean, we're in Saudi Arabia.